So the first thing you want to make sure you get is a certain bass pattern that Lindsay uses in a lot of these recordings. And the main thing that this bass pattern is going to do is going to free up your left hand to do more funky things. So now remember, this is all relative to the capo that I have on 3 here. I have my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, and my thumb's just kind of playing the A string and the open D string. This is sort of like what was going on the verse progressions, where you're going kind of the C with the, this is kind of the C, this is the G with the B and the bass, and this is the A minor. Except it's always an open D string. And this pattern really frees up your hand to go. Etc. You see, the point is that if you don't have to always have a finger on this D string, then only having to have this one finger, or sometimes no fingers, on the A string, that really frees up your left hand to do all kinds of funky stuff. So this is a good thing. So make sure you got that down. And the second thing you want to get is you want to make sure that, for the most part, you have that finger assignment that I showed you before, where you have your thumb kind of playing on the E, A, and D strings, your kind of 6th, 5th, and 4th strings, and that you have your fingers on the thinner strings. You want to have your ring finger on your 1st string, your high E string, your middle finger on your 2nd string, it's the B string, and your pointer finger on the 3rd string, it's the G string. All right, so now we're going to go in for a close-up, and I'm going to show you phrases one by one. First, I'm going to show you the transition that goes into the chorus, and then I will show you the solo. And these all kind of work together to build your chops to these Travis picking solos. So here we go. So the first thing I'm going to play is the transition that goes into the first chorus on the recording we talked about. It's a good kind of build up to the solo. So here it goes. 3 and 4 and... Now you're going to notice that that uses kind of the finger assignment approach, where these fingers are pretty much on the strings I left them on, but you're still doing things that are more melodic than what you normally do. And a lot of it's got to do with spacing the notes out, not trying to just play notes and notes and notes and arpeggios all over the place. So let's break down that first measure here. Not a whole lot's going on for the first 2 beats. It's literally just thumb and then a second. Is kind of finger strokes on the and of 3 and 4. So watch me count it out. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's kind of right after these thumb strokes. It's going to be kind of right after the thumb strokes the D string. It's going to go A, D fingered, A, D finger. That's kind of what makes that phrase work. So once you start to get that down at a slow pace, try to pick it up to... Okay, so there's one bar. Second bar, this one's a little funny because Lindsay drones on the A string for a second. For the first whole beat, it's all A, 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 A. And the melody goes... So he goes 1, pinch, pull off, and then he plays that 3rd fret of the B string kind of right after that last stroke. So one more time. And then the second part, he goes. And at that point, he's kind of going back to being syncopated. So there's another hammer in this bar. Play the whole bar one more time really slowly. 3 and 4 and... And you see on the second beat, he's going to go back, he's going to go from like pulsing on the A to going... Da, na, na, na. See, he goes A, A, D, A, D. So that takes a little bit of time to coordinate, but really when you get it down, it should be kind of like this. take a little time with that bar. The next bar is pretty straightforward with the bass. It's just got 3 and 2 there, 2 and 0 there, and there's some snappy type things up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first 2 beats. Right on that second thumb stroke, you have middle pointer as a snap. So that's the beginning of the bar. And then you have another finger stroke kind of in between the 2 thumb strokes in the second part of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll play that again. All right, and then this second part of the third bar that we're on, it's similar in that it's got a lot of in-between strokes. It's got the pointer in the middle going in between the first 2 thumb strokes. Yeah? So let's try to put that whole third bar together. 3 and 4 and... And one other thing he does, he kind of does vibrato a little bit under his pinky on that last melody note. That's another thing that makes it a little more melodic. So one more time. So there's your third bar. The last bar in this transition is very similar to a lot of phrases we've had before as it's kind of going into the chorus. The bass is just going just over your sort of A minor with the not open D string, and then I usually use my thumb to play the F sharp and the D, which are I suppose not actually F sharps and Ds given the capo, but if you're thinking open G. And then it's the same phrase in the fingers over that thumb pattern. You go that pinch and the snap right at the beginning. It's middle pointer, ring, middle pointer, ring. And then over the D chord, it's the same rhythm, but you're going to have middle pointer, middle. And your third fret of the B string is going to go down to 1 on the beat. It's going to go 3, 1. So that whole bar, 3 and 4 and... So now what you'll want to do once you've gotten all that down is try to put all those phrases together into that whole kind of 4-bar transition. You can rewind to the section where I played it through to see what the whole thing is again. Kind of work through these as you need to put that all together. But that should really kind of give you some more melodic freedom, or at least a sense of how to build phrases like these up. And yeah, that being said, I think we're ready to go into the solo. So the first thing you want to assume when you're doing the solo is that the bass is pretty much always that open D bass, because you're really going to need that freedom in your fingers to get all this done. So make sure you've got that totally on your fingers. I'm going to break this down a phrase at a time. The opening phrase of the solo kind of mirrors pretty much exactly what the harpsichord does on the album solo. So you have 2 beats of the thumb, and then there's the 16th run up. It goes... And the fingering is open G, hammers to the 2nd fret of the G string, and then you kind of pluck on the B string, open, and then 3. I'll stick with the finger assignments for this. So I'd play the first 2 notes with the pointer and then with the middle. And then you're into the G with the B and the bass voicing. So, one more time. The next bar, you have some kind of funny slidey things up here, and so whatever you do, don't be tempted to hold down to any notes up here. You're really just going to let go. Your third fret of the B string is being held. I got the pinky there, or did I? Yeah, I had the pinky there. You're just going to slide that up to the 5th, and then bring it right back down to the 3rd. So up, and just pinch whenever the thumb hits the A string there. Pinch, pinch. Next note, you're going to have the pointer finger down on the second and the middle finger down on the second of the A and the G string. So pointer second fret of the A string, middle second fret of the G string. But right after that, you're kind of hammering with the pinky up to the fourth fret of the G string. So you plant these two fingers down, but you go right away. So you kind of got to prepare for that mentally a little bit. You're coming out of. So that's how you get that note. And then to finish this bar, you just go pinch, pinch. You know, the thumb's still kind of alternating, but you're pinching twice with the pointer finger on the G string. Second fret, and then open. So those first two bars put together. Make sure you can put those together, maybe not at that tempo, but at least at some tempo you can kind of hang on to that is steady. Then you're kind of back to your C chord position. And you have another really short 16th run. You have. And this one's a little bit tricky in that it's a hammer on and then you pluck for the pull off. Oh, you don't really do a pull off, you just pluck for that third note. But you kind of have to do a hammer while your thumb is still going, and that can be kind of disorienting at first, so just watch out. If you wanted to go thumb, 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 pluck, hammer, and that hammer happens at the same time as that thumb pluck, so make sure you time that. And then you kind of pluck again right after that thumb stroke. And then you keep going. Now on the fourth beat of this bar, when the thumb hits the A string, you hammer up from the second to the third fret. So you go, just a little melody. It kind of sneaks its way into the bass real quick. So make sure you get D, D, D. Thumb's just going A, D, just like it normally did, but now there's a hammer in there where there wasn't before. So that whole bar. See, I kind of put those two things together. Get that down, and then we're going to go on to the fourth bar of the solo. The fourth bar is sort of like a lot of things that happen in the transition, that there's these kind of pretty arpeggios. They're all syncopated. Between every single bass note after the first beat, every single bass note's going to have a finger after it. So, you know, just take for granted that the thumb's not doing anything special. It's still just open A minor, and that open G chord. So assume that. The arpeggio sequence you got with your fingers is from this A minor chord. You go middle on one on the B string, open G string, 3 on the thin E string, and then open G. And at that point you've kind of switched to sort of a B minor voicing. So you have 2 on the E string and then 3 on the B string, open E. That whole sequence looks sort of like this. See if you can take a second to get that down. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit that open E, B. It should be the open G string like this. And if you put that with the thumb, it looks kind of like this. I'll play that one more time really slowly. One time maybe a little faster. So just remember, there's always an alternation between every thumb stroke, and just make sure the thumb is just going top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom, top. And I tend to make the open G strings a little bit quieter because the real melody is. It's kind of these upper notes. So I kind of bury the open G strings. They're almost just kind of filler notes in a way. All right, so if I put together the whole solo up to that point, it looks kind of like this. that's the solo up to that point. The next two bars are actually almost the same as the beginning two bars. Bars 5 and 6 are basically a mirror of the first phrase, except for one note. It starts at... See, I kind of added that extra pointer finger stroke in, kind of right after the lower thumb stroke on 4. Right after the downbeat of 4, there's a pointer finger on the open G string, right after that stroke, so check it out. It's kind of right between. That's the extra stroke in there. The next bar is the same as before. It's just exactly the same as it was before. Now, this is where it's going to start to get tricky because the next two bars have a lot of 16th notes in them, so get your brains on for this one. The first phrase we're going to deal with, your thumb is going to go back to playing a full C chord. So you're going to have, you know, your ring finger down on the 3rd fret, but you're also going to have your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. So you're playing like a full C chord without that open D there. So first thing you're going to want to do is with the pointer finger, you want to go pinch, pinch, I guess pinch and then pluck after that 2nd thumb stroke. That's the first beat. The second beat, you kind of do a little dee-dee-dee with the fingers, dee-dee-dee, and it starts right after the first beat, so you do thumb, dee-dee-dee, thumb, dee-dee-dee. Put together with the first beat, you get shooting for. So piece that together. Third beat, it just kind of has a snap with the middle and the pointer finger. So you've switched to the G with the B and the bass. So you go, and I should clarify, it's an open B string for this. So all you have is the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. You just go snap, thumb, snap, thumb, snap, thumb. And for the 4th beat, there's nothing going on, well, there's nothing going on with the right hand fingers, but you're going to go thumb on the open A string, and he does a real quick hammer on the open D. When he hits the open D, he hammers up to 2. So if you put that whole bar together, you get D, 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 D. Now, the last bar of the solo is this really famous 16th runs that was in the harpsichord on the solo, on the original recording. So, first thing, the bass pattern switches for this really significantly. Instead of going ba da da, instead of doing pulsing 8th notes, he goes to doing just quarter notes. He does 2 quarter notes on the A string, A, D, D. And that's all the bass does for the whole bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that does somewhat help you get around all the 16th notes. When I'm improvising, I don't like to use this as much, but sometimes it's a handy change of texture. For learning this run, if this is your first time trying to do a run like this, it really, really helps a lot. So just remember, you have open A, open D, open D. Now, when Lindsay plays this, he kind of uses the ring finger just again and again. He goes D, 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 D. I usually find this first run is really helpful if you walk. If you switch from having these fingers assigned and you kind of walk like this, but whichever way you want to do. The first note of the melody is a pointer finger on the 1st fret of the B string. And then it goes up to the 3rd fret of the high E string. I tend to like to do this with the pinky, like with the pointer finger on the 1st fret of the B string and the pinky on the 3rd fret of the E string, because you're going to see it's going to slide up, so that pinky's good to have here. So you go 1st fret of that, 3rd fret of the E string, and you go just 3rd, 2nd, 3rd. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd. 1st, 3rd, 3rd. more time. The numbers are 1st, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 3rd. Then when you hit the next thumb with the bass note, you slide up with the pinky to the 5th fret. And then you go 5, 3, 2, 3. So you can get 5, 3, 2, 3. And then it might be good to put those two together if you get the energy to. You want to go. So what times I'll do is I'll slide up to that note and then pull off, and then pluck these two notes. Pluck, 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 slide, pull, pluck, pluck. Just like so. Now, at this point, thumb's going up to play on the D string. The first two things I do is I play a 2nd fret of the E string and then I pull that finger off. So you go first two notes. Then you go 3rd to the, I usually play the open E string. You can play with it as the 5th fret of the B string, but I tend to go pull, 3rd fret, open E string. That's the 3rd beat. And then the 4th beat is on the B string, you go 3, 1, 0, 2, and then to end it, B string. So 3, 1, 0 on the B string, and then 2, 0 on the G string. What I tend to do is I'll tend to pull off that first note, play the 2nd note with my middle finger, and then play those last two notes with my pointer finger. And then I usually play, well, I'll pretty much always play the thumb on the 3rd fret of the low E string, because again, you're back to a G chord at this. You're back into the chorus on that last note, so you want to end up on a G chord. So if you put that whole run together, it looks like this. Sorry, I bluffed a note in there. Let's give this one more shot. And one more time I'll use the right left-hand fingerings. Here we go. And there you go. That's the whole solo in its completion. That's 8 bars of solo right there. If you play the whole thing put together, it all looks sort of like this. 3 and 4 and... there you have it. I probably cheated a little bit on the right-hand fingers there. I think the speed of this is not so great that if you're advanced enough, you can play things with repeated fingers like that. But the more you can remember the fingering that I gave in this video, especially if you're first time learning it, you're really going to want to stick to that because it'll make it a lot easier. I probably wasn't a great example here in terms of keeping to one fingering, but I'm also able to finger this a bunch of different ways and get through it pretty well. But of course, you know, what I tend to find is the more you kind of leave the fingerings up to option, the more mistakes you make, especially if you're playing a set thing like this. So for now, I'd advise you to kind of try to stick to a single fingering as much as you can so you just get it clean. And then as you start to go into more of the improvisation exercises, then you try to like really consciously cultivate alternate fingerings for things so that if you find yourself in a sticky situation or by some mistake you like switch which finger you're using, your fingers know what to do because they've been in that situation before. So that's just a piece of advice for that which is yet to come. So yeah, I think at this point I'm ready to go into all the exercises that I do on Travis picking improvisation. It's all stuff I pulled out of studying this solo and figuring out how you can kind of jam on a lot of these ideas. So hope you check those out when you're ready for them, and yeah, take it easy. Have a good one.